Well, hello, all of you AIM cats out there. We're going to do a little recording today. Douglas has a lot to say about what's going on in Ukraine. Before he starts, I want to bring to your attention a new feature that we have over at the American Intelligence Media. You know, for years, we really ran a school like blog where we were teaching the history that has been hidden from us for centuries. So we're all learning together what is our true history, what is our foundation. For example, we cats all know that anytime you talk about legacy media and a lot of alt media, you're really looking at arms of the British propaganda system that originated in 1909 with the Empire Press Union. So we not only know that ABC, CBS, NBC, and many of them are fake news, we can tell you where in history they were established to be the British propaganda arm for the rest of the world, which is going to tie into what Douglas talks about today, because without this British propaganda constantly running in the background, we may not have had all the wars that we did. But let's go over to the American Intelligence Media. Now that we've educated all of our cats about what's really going on, and since Trump has started his new term, we picked up things on the American Intelligence Media, which is over at aimfortruth.org, and we're going to be looking at the downsizing of government, looking at the spending bills, the laws that are passed, and really getting into them and showing you what they mean. You're not going to get this anywhere but here at AIM. So the first one was the U.S. Department of Net Assessment Fund's anti-American agenda. We showed where that money was being used for terrorism. The next one we did was one called Maximum Efficiency in the Federal Workforce, where we showed Donald Trump, or President Trump, I like to say. I don't like using his name, Donald Trump. I think we need to honor the executive office and give him the title always of President Trump. But we gave President Trump and anyone on his team who cares to listen another round of cuts that they could do based upon the emails that are coming in from these reluctant employees. But what we are suggesting is how you can capture the metadata on that to show the true organizational structure of what's going on. And you could also see the phrase at the end where people aren't reporting to supervisors, or there's overlap, or that person is just left out in left field. So I hope y'all will check out that article. We also went into further reorganization because, seriously, we have studied the federal government now solidly with all of y'all for almost 8 years. Can you believe it's been that long? But on this one, on the federal agency reorganization plan for $4.55 billion savings, we're looking at other cuts for agencies that are just truly not worthwhile, where those cuts could be, how many employees they have, what the savings will be. That's another layer of cuts that could be done without firing anyone individually, just getting rid of entire agencies. And then this morning I posted the Uncovering Pork Spending in the 2025 budget proposal that just came out of the House. The full bill is in there. We do a quick overview of the bill. I'm going to try to keep these really short, bulleted, not a lot of heavy reading so that you can get through to them. We also identified the pork spending and areas of concern where there could be irregular spending, places where they're hiding opportunities for committing more fraud, taxpayer fraud. So you'll want to check into that. Now, we're going to be doing this on a regular basis. This is coming from the conclave. What is the conclave? For those of you who have just joined us, early on when we first started, we were looking for the smartest people in the world to help us discover the truth. And we found some very smart people. And we always encourage those who have contributions to let us know and to join us. But this is a group in our conclave that are familiar with the federal government. And along with our main team, we're going to be producing these. These are for you, the citizens, the taxpayers, we the peeps.
Well, Tyler's right about that. I got a lot to say. I just went over to Gab and I think I wrote down 35 points, all of which are major points, and all of which come under one heading called Fantastic Lies and Alibis, because that's all you're seeing from mainstream media. So let's just see how fast I can go through these things. but some of them take a bit of a history lesson. But mainstream media right now, fantastic lies and alibis, it's worse than entertainment. And this is good. And why do we see this? Because fantastic lies and alibis. The whole mainstream media, including the whatever you want to call them, the anti-constitutional deep state career politician, the John Brennans and such, they're on mainstream media just telling the most fantastic lies you've ever heard. Now it's worse than a comedy show if you want to go watch it. I've never watched it because it also has subliminal programming in it. Anyway, the FCC, okay, the Federal Communications Commission. Well, what's happening? We are seeing that Trump just threatened that from now on, anyone who makes a quote about him or anybody else in his administration that doesn't cite the source, in other words, no more anonymous sources. Hello, it used to be illegal not to remember when they kicked people off the air because they didn't have 3 substantiated sources for any story that they put on the mainstream media? Now, no, they just make up lies. So what's happening there? You get to see that, but you also get to see that the FCC is going after George Soros. Well, isn't that funny? Because George Soros already made the deal for the taking over 200 radio stations here in America. In other words, another step in George Soros's theft of America through basically his hedge fund and through currency manipulation around the world. And if he gets a hold of these 200 radio stations, it will basically be a new global engagement center. But let's remember who put up the money for the Global Engagement Center, particularly for Cambridge Analytica. That would have been, yes, George Soros's NGOs, as well as U.S. aid. So what we are seeing is the collapse of the mainstream media, and particularly we now see the battle, and people think this is a joke. This is no joke. You don't have to have press conferences. Biden demonstrated that. Plus, he put a person with a 0 IQ as the person speaking the lies at the podium for his press person. But now what do we have? One of the best we've ever seen, and we don't have to have that. They can cancel that altogether anytime. They can say who can come in, and then there's a guy who now gets all the updates. I just was listening to him this morning on Gab. Beautiful. He has 4,500 followers, but this guy gets the full update that all the news agencies receive. Now, let's remember, the news agencies are all fake. The Associated Press is nothing more than Avid, ISIS management. And Reuters was bought by Thomson. Well, to begin with, Reuters was, of course, Rothschild. And Thomson's now is basically City of London. So when you say that when I say that I can see the mainstream media changing, basically the USAID that was supporting the British newspapers that were the biggest lies in the world always had the story before it even happened and was on always first at every single site that goes with their plan. That was the British. Who was paying for that? We were, USAID. So I love seeing all the people around the world who are saying, oh my gosh, I don't get any more money right now. And then they want to say that Trump hasn't done anything to save any money. Well, we see the whole world reeling from it. Now, I want to go back to George Soros. Oh, also, leaks to the press. Leaks to the press are illegal. Those are federal crimes. What have we seen anybody giving leaks during the last, terrible administrations in the White House? Very seldom. I think we saw the biggest leak in American history. The guy went to jail for 2 weeks or something like that, and then he came right back to his position. Did not lose his security clearance. And I love the fact that Trump took away Jack Smith's supportive lawyers, Covington and Burlington, who supported him during his fake attack on Trump. And that means that Jack Smith is going to be considered a war actor. And the people who supported him just lost all their security clearances. Well, you can't do any business with the federal government if you don't have a security clearance. So all those lawyers are gone. Let's go back to George Soros. I'm going to tell you some things that maybe you don't know. But if you've been following us or you want to have the proof, go to Truth History, go to Aim for Truth, plug in whatever I'm saying, and you will see the proof. The USSR was one giant happy group. Now, you're not going to like what I'm going to say, but it's the truth. Right now, if you look at the countries that were split up out of the USSR, which was a U.S. attack through George Soros and Leo Wanta, and a currency destabilization of the ruble, and this is all on record. You can hear Soros bragging about it, Leo Wanta bragging about it. You can $150 billion were given to just Leo Wanta himself to go in, buy every ruble, take it out of the country. Because you see, if you have hard currency and it goes out of the country, your currency dies. So they took them down to 25%. They had 75% of the currency was bought up and taken out by George Soros and Leo Wanta. That's what crushed the USSR. Excuse me, I keep saying Russia. USSR at that time. And by the way, Ronald Reagan had nothing to do with it. People want to say his strength caused it to happen. He had Alzheimer's. I was his wife's consultant. He didn't know who he was when he went up to the podium, but he could memorize because he was an actor. He didn't have anything to do with this. This was his vice president, George H.W. Bush, Daddy Bush, who was given control to take down Russia for his own personal gain, and he was given the most extraordinary power that any vice president ever had in American history to do all foreign business himself. Because why? After the attempted assassination on Ronald Reagan, he didn't know who he was. His wife was running the White House, and Bush was running the world. So they went in, they destroyed it. So let's just give you a little statistic here. In 2021, they took a vote throughout the countries that are no longer part of the USSR or Russia, and they found that over 70% of them wanted to be back with Russia. Well, that's what happened in Donbass. They took a vote, but it was even higher than 70. It was like 78% of the people in the two Donbass regions voted to go against Kiev, and the two presidents, Poroshenko and whatever his name, the guy before, those were CIA color revolutions with the help of George Soros to take over Ukraine. Let's remember that. And let's remember that they were involved in every single nation separating from the USSR, okay, the CIA. Matter of fact, the CIA and George Bush set up their headquarters in Azerbaijan, and only recently did they move out of there, okay? They controlled the whole nation, all right? So this is the same old story. In 1991, when Reagan came and said, Mr. whoever, knocked down your wall. Yeah, the Berlin Wall had nothing to do with any of that. Estonia, Latvia, and the other one there, the Baltic country, they formed a human chain and prayed and sang. And they were the first to leave Russia, USSR control, right? But where is the heart of Russia, if you were to ask this? Most people would say Moscow or St. Petersburg. That's incorrect. It's Kiev. Why do you think they haven't bombed Kiev? Why do you think some of the G7 countries, especially all the lower ones, not the big ones, just went to Kiev, and every one of them promised money to continue the war? Now you have the the European Union. They have now knowing that on Friday, probably, that Zelensky will sign a peace treaty that Trump created on the telephone. And the negotiations went faster than anyone ever in human history has seen for any peace deal. And this is complicated. So sounds like I'm going in the weeds, but I'm not. You need to know this. And I bet you don't know anywhere that is going to tell you what I'm about to tell you. Okay, so it's the common deal that when Britain, the United Kingdom, gets us in a war because they hate Germany and they never want Germany and Russia to join together, right? Now, you think I'm a nutcase. No. World War I and World War II was because Britain did not want Germany joining with Russia, because that would basically be the end of Britain. Because everybody knows who created Russia and the Bolshevik Revolution, that's the Brits, who created Mao Zedong and the communism, that's in China, who created the fascists in Italy, who created the fascists all over the world, and every ism that has caused people to die in a war was incubated in London or the City of London, and out of the City of London came the money. And George Soros himself, after he did this to Russia, turned around and tried to do it to England. He almost collapsed the English pound. That's the reason that they became so weak, tried to get into the European Union because George Soros told them that they needed to have one central bank for all of the European Union. Why? So that the minute that he could foment a war through a color revolution in the Baltic, in Poland, in Romania, in anywhere of those places, by the way, who we give tons of money to, then it would start a war because, of course, George Soros is about collapsing currencies, and he's trying to collapse the currency in America. He gave $86 billion to his NGOs a few years ago because they were coming after him from the SEC for stealing the money from America without paying taxes. And what did he do? He turned around and he put it into the bank accounts of NGOs that are all liberal Democrats, demon rats, I like to call them. So George Soros hasn't let up. He's still leading this charge right now. He's trying to get the radio stations in America. He got all the Secretary of States to cheat on the elections when the British Lord Mark Malloch Brown's Optech began to be questioned. Then what did he do? He put in the attorney generals in the states. He came in and personally donated to every one of the people he needed in those key places so the elections could be rigged, so the attorney generals would support it, and the attorney generals would give the state legislation. Basically, remember, elections are in the state's hands, okay, even federal elections. That's why all the cheating happened, because the states passed rules that had never been passed before that allowed cheating because of the pandemic. And, George Soros is right there with that too. So let's remember, we are going to basically get, and it is not rare earth minerals, which they'll say Trump is stupid because he says that. No, they are graphite, titanium, and lithium. Now, I want to say that everybody involved in this I'd use really bad words, but I'm recording this. They're all stupid because this is all done from satellites. None of this, there have been no assays on any of this. This is all speculation. So what did Trump say the other day? He now moved it from, well, I thought it was $250 billion that we'd given him. I can't find a single person in the government to tell me how much it is. I am now moving it up to $350 billion. And by the way, the trillion that we're splitting with them half, he basically insinuating he's getting another $150 billion in the deal from other things, which are resources there. So this will be the first time in history that the British didn't start a war, loan the country money, and have America, through reparations, pay Britain back for the money they loaned to start the war. And now we get to see that none of them, no country besides America and Ukraine and Putin, and because I say Putin because he is the dictator there, those are the only people who want peace. All the others want war. And that's the reason when Stormer came over the other day, Trump again bitch slapped the British by saying, this criminal war actor I'm not even going to meet with, and he's going to try to tell me to keep up the war. Sorry, I don't believe you anymore. And not only that, you notice that Trump, as I said before, I just love this. The most powerful person in America used to be the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff who sat on the National Security Council, because his word was the word. He wanted war, he got war. Now he's put in a guy who the mainstream media wants to act like they don't know who he is. He's the only effective military person who ever acted in the Iraqi theater, okay? Who ever acted against terrorists effectively. That's it. So what we're seeing, but it doesn't matter. Now the mainstream media, their lies are so fantastic, and they complain. Trump now won't let any administrative decisions be made without his approval. Correct. They were never supposed to be made to begin with. Oh, now they're going after people who do leaks. Correct. That's a federal crime. Oh, now they're going after people who say there's anonymous sources. Because why? Those are leaks. Those are federal crimes. Oh, yeah, that's right. No, all he's doing is basically being a person who follows law and order. Now, let's go back here for a minute. If if you don't understand that we're under a currency attack right now, and for the last couple of years, everyone thought BRICS was going to do us in. Everyone then thought cryptocurrency through central banks is going to do us in. Trump has now passed an executive order. No cryptocurrency through the U.S. Treasury at all. Not now, not ever. He also said any BRICS nation that ever speaks up another word against our currency again, it's 100% tariff. He also pointed out blatantly that China's economy is down 65%. They are no longer, everyone's pulling out of China and no longer the Belt and Road. They're going to get rid of President Xi. I predicted this. I said about a year ago, he went into his another 5-year term. Oh, no, he won't last through that. He's going down because all of his attempts have been absolutely miserable failures. As a matter of fact, in their capital cities, the rental situation for major corporations from outside of China that the Belt and Road was all about have all left. And if they haven't left, they're leaving. And so they have, so sometimes in Shanghai, 50% of their fantastic office buildings in one of the most fantastic cities in the world, empty. They can't survive that for more than a very, very short period of time. So anyway, one of the biggest lies, okay, let's go over lies and alibis. What's the biggest lies now? Tariffs will hurt us. We've already seen the first administration. Tariffs gave Trump so much confidence, and he's going to do it much stronger this time as soon as he gets the pipelines completed again. Remember, they dismantled some of these pipelines, so they had to rebuild them, okay? That's how bad they were. They wanted to crash America so bad, and the people in the White House were our enemies. Okay, so tariffs will hurt us. Nonsense. War is good. That's what every nation in the United Nations believes. War is good because then we get money from America. We keep America distracted with war, and then we let the bureaucracy, we let the status quo, which I'm going to really yell about in a minute here, go on. That's what all the nations do. They drain us. They vampirize us. Okay, so another lie and an alibi. Administrative judges can tell Trump what to do in the executive office. Lie, he's now canceled all of them, and some of them have now, as their last-ditch attempt, tried to stop him again, though they don't exist anymore. And so when you see some of these fantastic lies that it looks like Trump is getting resistance and he's losing in some of these, no, none of that's true. None of that's true. And then that the big lie that the European Union or the United Kingdom want peace. Lie. Or that fraud is good. That's what we just heard from supposedly, go read the article. In the last sentence, you'll see the truth. That's the way they usually do it in mainstream media. They lie for 9/10 of the article, and in the bottom, they tell the truth. Okay, so 20 DOGE members quit because they couldn't stand to see the American government dismantled.
But of course, we all know that those were the former Obama and Biden people from when it was the department was at Digital Services, and so they're upset and they quit. But then again, what does the lying mainstream media do? They put headlines that suggest that these were DOGE people that came from Elon Musk, let's say, that quit. No, these are the old guard.
It says in the article clearly that they were civil servants, and they were basically, the next item I'm going to go to, they were people who were career politicians, unelected career politicians, because this is politics, folks. These are people playing their own belief system. This has nothing to do with a neutral federal government. No, this is politics. So those 20 people were civil servants. And I bet you a dime to a dollar that in fact, the reason they quit is because DOGE was getting to the fact that they were finding the evidence of fraud that would get those people fired anyway. It's the only way they quit. Because if you quit, you don't get your retirement. They could have had retirement. They didn't take retirement. So these are the most fantastic lies because they can't allow the false leaks anymore and attribute them to anonymous sources inside the government or people who are, what is it, the phrase they like to use? People who are aware of the circumstance. No, those are lies. Those people never existed. And so there are not 20 DOGE people quitting, okay? Those were people in those agencies at the top level that were either senior executive service members who had been there so long that had risen to that position, and or they were civil servants, career civil servants. In other words, the shadow government. They quit only because their lies and their alibis were found out. And so if you think Trump hasn't changed anything in the government, which is what all the libtards are saying, you are completely mistaken. But there's some very complicated issues here that I'm going to try to describe here. The recession of these budget items during the old budget. Now there's the new budget. Those are two different items, completely different. They have to be handled 100% different. And so what he's working with from the past, only fraud can shut that down now and claw back before that budget ends, which then you can't do much about. But right now, he's clawing back from an overview how much of this fraud is there and causing the people to quit who allowed the fraud. They're all complicit. I've said this so many times, I can't believe it. Why would anyone work for the federal government? You're working for the biggest fraud agency in the world, and it's all lies, and you're now complicit. I wouldn't take one of those jobs. Okay, so now there's a new thing, and that's that the SES, he came out, and this is the first time I've ever, except in a Trump executive order, seen articles about the senior executive service. They don't exist, folks. They're the secret shadow government, okay? That's why we call them the shadow government. They're not the deep state. Those people are just jerks. They're the transnationalist globalists. They're proud. They're the World Economic Forum. They're the Pilgrim Society. They're the people who think that they're, helping with their philanthropy. Those are the billionaires. That ain't what we're talking about. We're talking about people who were placed by Obama. Let's just call it John Podesta. These are anyone evil enough to think John Podesta is a good person could get a job at that time, okay? And they got high-paying positions above civil servant rates. So what Trump is basically doing with this new action is to say that he can place anybody he wants there. It doesn't matter. He can get rid of old civil servant shadow government. He can get rid of the senior executive service placements of his predecessors, even though they made laws after they placed those people that made it illegal to fire them or to stop their retirement or in any way to stop them from fraud, waste, or abuse. So this is huge that they're now talking about this. This was a warning, folks. In case you're a senior executive service member, you better get out now, because otherwise you will be held for the fraud that you were responsible for your agency. And by the way, there is no such thing as a U.S. federal government agency that there isn't fraud. No such thing. And if you think the Justice Department is different, no, they're the worst. The Department of Justice. You haven't seen the big clearing out of the house there because they have so much power. And as people keep saying, why aren't people being arrested? Because first off, they have to get literally 5,000 lawyers in place to take these cases. Because you're talking about 543 members of Congress on the Capitol Hill, and every one of them is guilty. You have to have multiple lawyers for every case. They're going to fight it with your money that they stole from you and put in their offshore accounts. So when the SEC and the Federal Trade Commission, after we end all relationships with the United Nations, they can go after offshore accounts because what are those? Economic terrorists. And now Obama made economic terrorism something we can go after with the military and every other aspect of the federal government. So anyway, yes. Oh, I'm so happy to see the British news agencies faltering. It is just amazing. Now, I want to say this point blank. Make sure that you understand this. If you say you resist a duly elected president, that's insurrection. If you're in the government, that's treason. Plain and simple. So you have Schumer and all these Waters and all these crazy people out there yelling, we will resist, we will resist. You have Gavin Newsom using $50 million worth of government money, taxpayer money, to resist Trump. That's insurrection. J6 was an FBI bad-handled, pathetic Hollywood performance of entertainment. This is an insurrection. This time, they did this to him before. This time, when he gets his people in place, when he gets the budget in place, and he has to get the right budget in place, because otherwise what happens is the money that was in the budget that he's saving now goes back to the same jerks who made the budget to begin with. It's called a recession, Recession. You have to re-vote on it. They have to allocate where it goes. Did that happen during Obama's time? No, not once. Did it happen during Biden's time? No, not once. They took it and put it in their slush funds. They simply moved it around on the budget, okay? So they're trying to tell Trump he doesn't get to spend that money, use that money. Well, he created a sovereign wealth fund, which I think he already had this planned because he knew what he was going to do. And so therefore, that's the way that goes. Now, remember, jumping back to Ukraine, all those funds from the European Union were loans. Ours were grants. Now, if Trump is right, let me calculate this, because this gets to be, I'm calculating Zelensky's retirement fund, folks. Okay, so it looks as if at this point, Zelensky only has $279 billion in his retirement fund in an offshore account in Cyprus. Okay, I promise you that's where it is, because he's an idiot. And that's about the only place you can get away with it anymore. And that's why there's a war on Cyprus, okay? Make no mistake about it. So what we're talking about here is when Trump meets with Zelensky, remember what Zelensky's asking for. Zelensky demanded of Biden on the way out in the Congress that he needed $250 billion payoff. Here we have it, folks. We hit the number, $271 billion payoff to Zelensky. Do you think Trump doesn't know that? You think Trump's going to let him walk away with that? I don't think so. So we'll see what happens. But anyway, we have in this period of time as bad a dictators as there were in World War I and World War II. At least they had said what they believed in. These people, like the head of the European Union now, is a complete nutcase. All right? The head of Germany now is literally a Nazi on steroids. He has basically declared war against America. And he's basically said he's ignoring the peace agreement in Ukraine and sending in troops. And he's going to send in troops, not peacekeeping troops, which Trump and Rubio and Hegseth tried to convince him of. No. These are war troops. They want the war to go on. So expect that in the next few days, you're going to see some terrible false flags of Britain trying to keep this war going, because Britain understands that if it already happened, folks, Britain is no longer a world player. They're not even in the top 10. Okay? The only reason they are is because the city of London controls world economics. But besides that, the Brits themselves, literally, I just saw it on the news. They did calculations of the population of Britain. Britain is what the word said. Didn't say Scotland, Ireland, or anything else. Britain. In 2 years, it will no longer be a British country. It will be a Muslim country. Britain will be Muslim, folks, because of the amount of people they let in. And also now they can't even have a pocket knife in their pocket to defend themselves against the enemy that have weapons, that have machetes and knives, and all the kitchen knives that they collected, all those that were collected in those bins on the street were taken by the terrorists. So now this is really a matter of terrorism. And so we have to just define, if the cartels are terrorism, then Mexico's our enemy, because the cartels control Mexico. That's why Mexico's freaking out. They want to know, how far is Trump going to go? They would need to take over Mexico if they want to take over the cartels. And who has been killing more people than in any war we've been in? That would be the drugs coming across the southern border. Oh, that's right. The drugs coming across the southern border are the CIA working with China, and then they went up to Canada and started bringing all the people in. And who do you think the coyotes are? The coyotes are the same CIA, FBI agents that were in the January 6th supposed insurrection, folks. This is an insurrection against America's sovereignty. That's what we're looking at. And it's happening on a global scale. It's happening here in America, and we have to really be aware of this, because if we're not, you will get caught up. As I was reading mainstream media yesterday and today, I said, wait, that sounds horrible. Trump is losing. But even read to the bottom of their article, you'll find out, no, they're lying. Not only that, the whole article is all slanted and crazy. Instead of saying 20 DOGE members quit because of they don't want to downgrade the federal government, it should have been the criminals who caused the fraud left. That should have been the headline, okay? And that's what's happening all over. You can't name a single area in the federal government that has not been turned into total chaos. And that's on purpose. And why is he using Elon Musk? Because he knows he's a crazy man. And so he could blame it all on him. Remember, Musk has 18 months to do this here. And if he does it here, guess what? We've already heard this from a number of other countries who are now gone conservative with their new elections. Why? Because they're not allowing the elections to be rigged. And what do they want? They want a DOGE in their country.
And we're working with the conclave members now who are ripping apart all these government documents and stuff and giving us analysis. And they are recommending, I believe there will be a forthcoming article on this, that once the United States gets its government cleaned up, that there could be block grants given to each state for their own DOGE cleanings.
Absolutely. And rightfully so, because, I saw, I was listening to mainstream media, and so I watched a clip about, what's that comedian, John, the one who hurt his hand. Anyway, these people, what they say is just incredible. He says, okay, well, I'm DOGE now, so in the next 11 minutes, I'm going to save billions of dollars. I'm going to say, pharmaceutical companies, we're not going to give you any more supplemental support. Well, he's such an idiot, he didn't know Trump already did that. Okay? They have no authority now. CDC, NIH can't even write papers. They can't even give us advice. Have you not paid any attention to that? Jon Stewart, who bloodied his hand, had a big gash in his hand because he slammed his coffee cup down, trying to emphasize that he could do better than DOGE. Okay, what idiot didn't pay attention to the audits of the Pentagon that amount to $22 trillion missing? So, yeah, okay, I can save money. Yeah, stop war. Well, Trump just stopped war. He just stopped World War III. And he's going to have to fight every other country to stop it. It's not over. He can stop the people who are killing each other, but he can't stop the fomenters of the war until he does economic deals or threats with them. And so you're going to just see the biggest stir up in the next few weeks, because until that budget is determined, his people can't do what they need to do. And the budget is rigged. And Mike Johnson, is no friend of Trump's. Okay? But I just love to see the fact that they're going after, some of these Democrats who are absolutely doing illegal activity. But because they got away with it, that's what a criminal does. How about this guy, 17 times for felonies and multiple murders? They released him every time in America that he was caught. How many times will you have to see that happen? It's like the border. It doesn't matter what Congress says. That's not the Congress's job. That's the executive branch job, to secure our borders. They provide the money with a budget. Doesn't matter. He took it out of the other budgets, and they still tried to fight him. And then you got to see the libtards in the different states fight him. Well, folks, they're not going to fight anymore because they realize that there's going to. But Trump, until you lock some people up, you better lock somebody up, man. You better take this low-hanging fruit and lock them up, or else you won't get people to fight for you once they're facing these lies and alibis of the mainstream media.
Well, I'd rather him clean up all of this extraneous spending stuff so that money can't be used against us like it has been. Get that all cleaned up, close all the exit doors that the swamp critters have to create mayhem and misspending. And then once those are closed up, then go. Like Mike Johnson, we have pointed out his treason before. And, when you've committed treason, there's no do-overs. You don't get a second try. Treason is treason, and a lot of them have committed treason, and we're keeping notes.